Hi English language students, this is a PowerPoint overview of what to expect on Paper 1 Section A of your English language exam. So the overview is you have 1 hour and 35 minutes. That's not for the whole paper. Remember, you'll also have the child language development section just for this section. And it's called Textual Variations and Representations. On the question paper itself, there is a text descriptor of each of the unseen texts, text A and text B. And within that, you can usually find the genre of the piece, the date it was published, and the place it was published. Sometimes that might be the name. So if it's like, called the London News, for example. So I'm going to come back to that. But it's just worth remembering not to just rush over those text descriptors because they're quite helpful. The questions are always the same. Bear that in mind. You have an A level where you always know what the question will be. So that's, a good thing. For both 1 and 2, you're asked to look at how language creates meanings and representations. And then for question 3, you have to compare and contrast the way they use language. Notice more marks for the individual analysis than for the comparison. So, I'm recommending that you spend 95 minutes in total. There's a suggested reading time given on the exam paper itself, but that is for all the texts, so that includes the child language development ones. So I'm suggesting you spend 15 minutes reading and preparing text A and B. That leaves you with 30 minutes to write the individual analysis and 20 minutes to write the question 3 comparison, bearing in mind how question 3 has slightly fewer marks. So this is what I would suggest you do. This is what I've always encouraged you to do and we've practiced doing in class. Go back to the question paper and annotate that text descriptor. So even before you start reading the texts in detail, you have an idea already of their audience, their purpose, their genre, and their context, both when and where they were published. The 3 highlighter method, subject, audience, and writer. But please remember that the subject is the most important and you really have to focus on that and save the audience and the writer for sort of 1 or 2 points, okay? You may at this point also want to annotate a few language levels as you spot them. Okay, I know it's not a lot of time to do really detailed annotation, but as you're reading through, you may just want to do that. That annotation then allows you to put your points together into paragraphs. That is level 3 and above is having proper paragraphs, not just a random go through the text, but actually putting things together. So I would recommend your points about the topic, points about people or places, then a point about the writer, a point about the audience. When it comes to question 3, you're being asked to compare and contrast. What can you compare and contrast? The different audiences for the 2 texts, the different purposes of the 2 texts, the different genres or the differences in genre. Even if they're the same genre, there will be generic differences. Differences in mode, particularly with modern versus older texts. The modern text is highly likely to be blended mode in some way, to be computer mediated. And differences in genre. Okay, we can normally expect a modern text to be more informal. Whatever you compare and contrast, you then link the reason for that difference to the differences in context, time, place. Try to cover 3 or 4 points of comparison or contrast in detail. It's better to do them detailed than to do lots of random small comparisons. You still have to put labelled evidence in from both texts. It can be the same evidence you used in A and B, but try not to just repeat the same points. Okay,